Welcome to SeaRUG for the month of March. My name is David DeYarsa. I'll be your host today. I'm current president of the board of SeaRUG. And today I'm going to try to beat a world record for getting off the podium and off to the presenters right away. Got a good presentation today, and I want to get that going, which is what you all care about. So let's take a look at today's agenda. We're going to be talking about leveraging BIM data from design to construction in the cloud. So Autodesk Construction Cloud, this somewhat new packaging of some of the BIM 360 environment for Autodesk. And I know there's some stuff that's new in there that I'm quite frankly kind of eager to see because it's not something that I've seen very much of before. And today we've got our friends from Microsoft Resources, again, are hosting and presenting. So a huge thank you to Microsoft, of course. We always love having them. And speaking of huge thank yous, huge thank you to everybody that's a sponsor to SeaRUG in 2021. We've got a pretty good ecosystem of returning and some new sponsors, and we're really, really grateful that you've joined us and that we can put together these presentations for our audience thanks to you. And one last shout out to all my fellow members of the SeaRUG board. Thank you for all the work that you do in curating and organizing these meetings. And I look forward to seeing you in person sometime when we can again. Lastly, we'll post this as we have before to our YouTube channel. So if you haven't yet, go check it out, subscribe, give us a thumbs up if you like the presentation. That goes a long way towards YouTube kind of putting, if somebody searched for Revit in the search box, will come up, and the more likes and subscriptions that we have, the more towards the top of that list that we get. So it's a really great way to extend our reach and put some of our great content out to the wider Revit and BIM community worldwide. So give us a hand and subscribe, thumbs up, all that good stuff. And once again, I want to reiterate a huge thank you to Microsoft Resources. Microsoft Resources has been with us for a couple of years now, and they're a great member of the SeaRUG family. So thank you so much. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jim Stefan of Microsoft Resources, who's going to give us an intro to Microsoft and get us going on the technical presentation. So we'll see you on the other side.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedules to attend today's webinar around the topics of leveraging BIM from design to construction. We will be covering those topics and several more. Just to tell you a little bit more about myself, actually, next slide. Just to tell you a little bit more about myself, my name is Jim Stefan. I've recently joined Microsoft Resources as an account executive, focusing mainly on construction solutions. Want to thank David for actually introducing me here as well. Next slide, please. Today's agenda essentially will be covering a number of topics. The priority that we are, I think, the main focus that Autodesk has this year is to empower team for construction teams to collaborate better and in the field and participate and leverage pretty much BIM technology in the data and pre-construction phase and construction phase to reduce the amount of error files produced in the process and reduce significant margins, actually gain significant profit margins in the long term. Next slide, please. Microsoft Resources, for those who don't know, is an Autodesk and Bluebeam partner since 1986. We offer a broad array of software solutions for architects and currently construction professionals, so from Autodesk to Bluebeam and CAD learning, V-Ray, and 3D rendering technologies such as GeoSLAM companies as well. Next slide. In terms of a training, what we propose at Microsoft Resources for our partner are hands-on training sessions revolving mainly around Revit software, AutoCAD, BIM 360. We offer online on-demand classes that are more appropriate for the current, I would say, ecosystem of COVID-19. On the next slide, you will see pretty much the entire menu of pricing that we have available for our community. So from Revit to BIM 360 to Bluebeam and Rhino training sessions, you can personalize your training and scale up your team's processes and workflow as well. Next slide. So on March 23rd, Microsoft Resources has the privilege and the pleasure to partner and take part in the AIA New York for the Future of Culture Center in their spring edition. And on the menu of events on the list that you see on screen, you can essentially attend each or all the sessions. And wanted to specify specifically that the EDT time zone is more Eastern time zone in itself. So next slide. I would say that to keep in touch with Microsoft Resources, we would invite you to reach out to us via marketing. Should you guys have any questions whatsoever around the product that will be presented today, please feel free to use the chat box. We will answer all and every questions you have in the long run. On the next slide, you could see that we are essentially available on all social media platforms. We highly encourage all of our construction and architect community to access our YouTube page, where we have hundreds of how-to videos and very accurate and easily applicable content you can find for your own workflow and processes. So to that end, I will hand over the microphone to my colleague Nick, who will go over essentially all of the ways in which BIM can actually be leveraged from design to construction.
All right. Thank you, Jim. And thank you, David, for having us today. Can somebody just chime in and let me know that you can see my screen, just to make sure?
We see it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Let me turn on my camera here. Okay. So, as Jim mentioned, my name is Nick. I'm a BIM specialist here with Microsoft Resources, based out of our Philadelphia office. Not that I've spent much time there the last year or so, but my background is in architecture. I now work with our clients in the AEC industry by supporting and consulting on Autodesk products, as well as some of the other partner products that Jim had mentioned. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat as we go along. We'll try to address as many as we can at the end with the time that we have left over. So Miriam and Lisa and David will all be watching the chat and see what questions we might be able to address here at the end. Today we're going to talk about the Autodesk cloud solutions that are available and how they allow a project team to collaborate from design through construction, both in the office and in the field. Before digging into some of the key tools and capabilities that these solutions provide, let me first discuss why I think they offer value to us. I'll cover a handful of valuable tools and workflows through this presentation, but the most valuable asset that these cloud solutions offer is connectivity. As you'll see, they give everyone on a project team real-time access to all the information, anytime and from anywhere. As this image tries to illustrate, our current workflows are more segmented in nature, where different teams, so architects, engineers, contractors, subs, all of the above, all have different scopes of work, different milestones, and different deliverables, and on and on. Everyone is juggling data handover and coordination, all leading to a lot of time being spent on coordination, reviewing, and then even re-coordinating that information. Every single time a handover occurs between teams or across phases, data loss typically occurs, leading to inefficiency and possibly even risk. On top of that, this information is being housed in various locations, such as company servers or email, cloud storage sites, personal laptops at home, etc. This only further complicates matters. And then, of course, to top it all off, these issues have only been amplified during the pandemic, with many of us working remotely, as I'm sure many of you have been experiencing in some form or another over the last year or so. As you'll start to see as we go along, the quote-unquote Autodesk Construction Cloud helps connect all of that segmented information by providing a space to store, create, and manage quite a bit of the tasks that we would associate with the processes from design through construction. So for those of you unfamiliar with the Autodesk Construction Cloud, what is it? There's been some confusion lately with the rollout of the new platform, as David had mentioned, and that's only been rolled out within the last month or so. But basically, The quote unquote, as you see here on the screen, the Autodesk Construction Cloud is the umbrella term for the two separate cloud platforms that have been created by Autodesk. The first is called BIM 360. This is the cloud platform that many of you have probably heard of, as it's been around for a couple of years. I believe it was rolled out around 2015. However, very recently, just in the last month, mainly due to acquisitions of other applications that Autodesk has made over the last couple of years, and then the desire to incorporate those tools into those that were offered by BIM 360. Autodesk has recently rolled out as what has now been what is being called the unified platform. The unified platform is essentially providing the same tools as BIM 360, but with additional tools and the user interface from PlanGrid, if anybody's familiar with PlanGrid. That's a very popular construction management application that Autodesk acquired within the last couple of years. So essentially the goal was to take the BIM 360 platform, merge it with the most popular tools commonly associated with PlanGrid, and then develop a cloud-based platform for the purpose of construction management and administration. So each of these platforms, as I'll walk through a little bit here, are a collection of modules, as they've been termed by Autodesk, which act as a set of tools built into the platforms for specific phases of the project. As you see in this image, from design to planning to construction through to handoff to operations. And all of the information is accessed through the cloud. Ultimately, access to project information anytime and from anywhere should enable the teams to be more productive with their time by reducing that siloed nature of information and data loss that I mentioned on the previous slide. Everyone will have the most up-to-date information at their fingertips whenever they need it. That's obviously, in an ideal world, that's the idea. From wherever they are, whether they're in the office, working remotely, traveling, or on the job site, it should increase communication and collaboration and hopefully reduce work errors and rework, thus saving time and money. Now, there's a lot of ways to use these platforms depending on your role and your industry. Just know that we will be kind of scratching the surface here today. My goal really is to give you a general overview so you can start to see how they can start to help with your workflows, both in the office and on the job site, as the name of the presentation suggests. So what I'm showing here is a general overview of the products available for the BIM 360 platform. Again, BIM 360 is the one that has been around since about 2015 or so. Please don't feel the need to read through everything, as there is admittedly a lot of information here. I'll be reviewing a lot of this when I show you the platforms in the browser. I simply wanted to provide a slide that would outline each module and the key capabilities that they provide. And I'll do the same with the unified platform here in a minute, so you can start to see the similarities and differences between them. So BIM 360 is available in 4 main subscription offerings. We have Docs, Design, Coordinate, and Build. In addition to these 4 quote-unquote core products, there's also some add-on products, some of which you can see over here on the right. I'll get to that in a second. So Docs is the document management product. Think of it as a file server in the cloud, but with additional functionality. So Docs supports the entire platform. It's the core component to the BIM 360 platform, since it houses all of the project information used by each of the other products. Docs can be purchased separately, or it comes bundled with any of the other products when you're purchasing those. So just to walk through the rest of them very quickly. Design is the quote-unquote collaboration product. This allows multiple team members from multiple sites or offices to work at the same time on a Revit model or even Civil 3D files in the cloud. It allows us to control what models and what information and when we share between team members. So the design, BIM 360 Design is the product that allows us to sync with Central to a cloud model, like we would sync with Central to a Revit model on the server, for example. The Coordinate product is used for constructability reviews and clash detection. It's similar to Navisworks, if anybody's ever used Navisworks, where you basically compare models against each other to view various clashes. Again, we'll look at a lot of this stuff in more detail as we go along. And then finally, Build is geared more toward construction management, both in the field and on site. So for mobile access, there's the Field app that you can download and tie into the platform. Build provides teams with the ability to manage RFIs and submittals, as well as execute quality and safety management programs during the construction process. And then finally, as I mentioned, there are a couple add-on products that can be tied to different modules in BIM 360, either directly through BIM 360 or through add-on integrations. We won't be covering these in this presentation, but as you might imagine, they can be quite useful, as they tie to the information housed on your project site in the BIM 360 platform. So just to quickly go through these, cost management, or cost as it's called, is a separate module that can be added to BIM 360 through Build, which allows for managing construction costs throughout the life cycle of a project. It includes tracking change orders, managing supplier contracts, visibility into overall budgetary impacts. A lot of that information can be pulled directly from information housed in BIM 360. By far, that's the most used and the most discussed of the add-on products. We also have Plan, which provides tools for creating work plans and work sequencing. Layout, which is software that is meant to be used with robotic total stations in the field for site layout. Essentially, you can link models and information saved in BIM 360 docs with the robotic total stations for easy transfer of information to lay out in the field. Assets allows you to track project assets and equipment. Ops allows for using the data housed in BIM 360 docs for building operations management after project handoff. And then finally, there's Assemble, which isn't listed on this slide, but it's an integration with the BIM 360, which allows for taking the models, files, and information housed in BIM 360 and quickly sorting, grouping, filtering the quantities associated with the metadata in your model, in your Revit model, to help in both in pre-construction and construction management for things like bid management or estimating, takeoffs, value engineering, various other project tracking tasks. What I have here is just a slide created to help simplify the previous slide, simplify the main function of each one of these modules. So here you can see, BIM 360 design is for collaborating in Revit. BIM 360 coordinate is clash detection. BIM 360 build is for construction administration. BIM 360 docs is for file storage and document control. And then you can see over here, I won't read through these, but again, this is kind of breaking down the general purpose of what these add-ons accomplish with the platform. So now on to the newer of the two platforms, the unified platform. It's basically a repackaging of the BIM 360 platform to some extent, mainly as a result of Autodesk integrating with products they've acquired over the last couple of years, and specifically PlanGrid in this case, which is a very popular construction management application. I know I mentioned it earlier, so some of you may be familiar with it. If you're not, the unified platform takes the tools in BIM 360 and from PlanGrid, which they acquired, and presents them in a little better organized interface, at least in my opinion, which is reflective of the PlanGrid user interface. So it kind of tackles the best of both worlds. It makes those of us who've been using BIM 360 comfortable, and then takes those in the construction industry who've been using PlanGrid and love PlanGrid, and kind of incorporating those two and making it work for everybody. So we get that full, really, that full life cycle of a project where we can use the cloud products. You can see we have two categories here. Basically, we have design specialization and construction specialization. As you might imagine, the first two products focus more on the design side of things, whereas the second two products focus on workflows for construction management. Excuse me. First and foremost, the core component of this platform, like BIM 360 docs, is for the BIM 360 platform, is what Autodesk is calling "quote unquote" Autodesk docs, as you see down here. I think you can start to see why there's been a little bit of confusion with this rollout, given that the product names are quite similar. Oops, sorry, sped ahead there. So in any event, the Autodesk docs is essentially the older docs that we just talked about, just on the new unified platform. Autodesk BIM Collaborate that we have here is basically BIM 360 Coordinate, which again is the clash detection product. Autodesk BIM 360. Sorry, you see, I'm already getting my products tied together here. So Autodesk BIM Collaborate Pro is essentially BIM 360 design plus the coordinate. So it gives us the work sharing component plus the clash detection that used to be two separate products in BIM 360 are now part of the same product in the unified platform. Autodesk Build over here is essentially BIM 360 Build plus cost management plus PlanGrid. So it's taking all of the functionality that we have in BIM 360 Build plus the most popular secondary module of the BIM 360 cost management add-in for budgeting and cost control, plus the tools provided in PlanGrid, all for the construction industry and for use with construction management. Autodesk Takeoff that you see here, not something that we're going to review today, but it's a new application that's available for estimators. That allows them to pull information from Revit models and other documentation housed in the unified platform, and use that information for quantity takeoffs in the estimating process in general. One note on docs is we'll see you can access the previous version of BIM 360 docs projects through Autodesk Docs, but not the other way around, not vice versa. And I'll show you what I mean here in a minute regarding that. Here's a slide that I created just to help simplify that same look that we had for BIM 360. So you can see here, BIM Collaborate is essentially class detection. BIM Collaborate Pro is the collaboration plus the class detection. Autodesk Takeoff is estimating. Autodesk Build is construction administration and budgeting. And then Autodesk Docs is file storage and document control. Okay, my last slide before we actually hop into the browser and look at some of these tools, some of the workflows associated with them. As I mentioned, like I said, there's been some confusion. You can see I've already kind of got tongue-tied with the naming of some of these products. But there's been some confusion between the two platforms since the Unified was rolled out just last month. So I wanted to provide a graphic that would hopefully help to establish the similarities and differences between these two platforms. So here you can see that the two Docs products are basically the same, that they're the file repository for both platforms. Again, think of that file server in the cloud. You can see that BIM 360 Coordinate is Autodesk Collaborate. BIM 360 Design is now Autodesk Collaborate Pro. And the Pro also offers the clash detection that BIM 360 Coordinate does as well. You have BIM 360 Build, which is now Autodesk Build, and that includes the tools for cost management and the tools from PlanGrid that were once for separate products. And then finally, we have in the unified platform, we have Autodesk Takeoff, which again is the cost estimating product, utilizing the models and data housed in the unified platform from Revit to build cost estimates and takeoffs. So how do we actually use these tools to leverage data from the design process through to the construction, both in the office and the site? I'm going to actually use the unified platform predominantly in the rest of the presentation for a couple of reasons. First, it's new. Everyone likes the new shiny toy. And in the interest of the time we have, as I don't want to duplicate reviewing much of the same between two platforms, it's useful to just show the one platform for the most part. And then finally, the unified platform has been focused on the construction management workflow. So given the newer tools that are now available, I think it's more relevant to the focus of what this webinar is trying to accomplish. So with that being said, let me pop into my browser here. Oops. And there you can see Revit. Okay, so let me first show you both platforms quickly so you can start to see the similarities and differences between each. So let me just pop over here. So this is BIM 360. This is the BIM 360 interface that we see here. I can toggle between different products. So over here in this drop down, this is where we see some of those products that I was just talking about in the previous slides. So this is where I can toggle between the different modules that we have in the BIM 360 platform. And as you can see, let me get out of this. As you can see across here, we have some tabs that allow to cycle through some of the different tools and the workflows that we have here. So if I were to say switch to design collaboration, again, this is the collaboration component that allows us to work share in a Revit model, sync with Central, and so on and so forth. So if I can get this to populate here, you can see once it does, close that out. So I just want to show you, so here's the timeline tool. I'm going to show you this in more detail in the unified platform. I just wanted to expand on this a little bit just to show you how this is going to look similar to the unified platform when we actually get to it here. So if I click back out to like project management, for example, so again, part of the build platform is the project management module. If it wants to load for me here, maybe. There we go. So you can see here's some more additional tabs. So you can see these tabs across the top of each one of these modules. So as I click into each one of these modules, I get these tabs. And again, I'm going to dig into some of these tools more when we get into the unified platform here in a second. So this is kind of what the BIM 360 platform looks like. Some of you may have been using this. Some of you may be familiar with it. So now what I want to do is show you the new, as of a month ago, the new unified platform. So this is the unified platform user interface. So you can see that it looks somewhat similar to what we saw in BIM 360. So if I go back into BIM 360 and go back to my document management module here, just to show you the file structure essentially. So you can see here I've got a file structure over here on the left that houses all of my files, my models, so on and so forth. So in the unified platform, it looks very similar. But what you'll notice, at least in my opinion, it's laid out a little better. Now all the tabs are over here on the left-hand side, so we don't actually have to toggle between our different products as much. Overall, the structure is the same, but it's organized a little differently. So on the upper left-hand is where we actually toggle between the products themselves. So you can see here I have docs, design, collaboration, model, coordination, and build, all of which we're going to get into here a little bit. But let me just say, if I click on build, for example, you'll see here all the tabs populate over here, as opposed to in BIM 360, I would have to access a couple different modules to get access to all of these tabs, all of these tools that we have at our disposal. And then, as I mentioned just a couple minutes ago, and just to note, you can see the projects in both platforms from the unified platform dropdown. So if I click on this, you can see here as I scroll down, I get a drop down of all of the projects that are available both in BIM 360, which is signified by this little B over here. Hopefully everybody can see that. Or if they're housed in the unified platform by this little globe-looking icon that they've developed for the unified platform. Just to show you a difference here, if I click on that same in BIM 360, you see only Bs down this list. So as I mentioned, you can access both BIM 360 projects as well as unified platform projects from the unified platform, but not vice versa, simply because this is a newer platform and it's working to kind of coordinate those two spaces. So that's really all I'm going to show you here with BIM 360. Just know that they are rather similar, but obviously certainly different platforms. So I'll skip over the project setup workflow, as I've already done that here for us to some extent. If you have any questions on this, we can certainly help you, let us know, and we can always set something up for after the fact. What I do want to review is how we manage our information and users once that project has been set up. So here, again, like I said, this is the Autodesk Docs landing page. You can see I have a fairly simple file structure created here. You can set this up however you like. You can emulate the file structure you may use now on your Office server currently. A lot of people ask, how do I create this? It's all a matter of what your workflow is going to be, how many people you have on your team, how much information you're actually saving in the platform, and of course how many people from outside of your organization you're going to be inviting, like consultants and subcontractors and so on and so forth, as to how you want to break down the file structure that you have here. We have two main kind of folders here. So if I close those up, so basically when you start with Autodesk Docs, you have these two main folders here. So for the field folder is mainly for any issued construction documentation, like issued PDF sets, for example. The project files folder is for pretty much everything else: models, drawing files, photos, documents, and on and on. Further down below, you're going to see the Members tab. So if I click on the Members tab here, once I have members added to my project, I can actually assign them different roles. So you can see over here we have different roles. We have a couple different companies, as a matter of fact. And basically these companies and these roles will have a set parameter, or you have settings in the platform where you can say how much access they have to the information that you're actually housing in the Autodesk Docs platform. Additionally, we can kind of drill down on our permissions. even by file, folder to folder, or even file to file. So if I click on this, as I hover over here and click on this, a little 3-dot ellipse will pop up here. So you can actually see here I've got a handful of tools, one of which is permissions. So if I click on that, you can actually see it brings up everybody that's in the project, and I can actually play with the permissions. So I can say I can set it to read only. I can leave them with the administrative permission. So this is how we start to control the level of access that we're giving those people that we're inviting to our project to either upload, download files, view, edit, so on and so forth. So really the permissions is how we start to kind of drill down the minutia of actual control over those specific files. You can see we actually have a number of other different tools here that we won't really get into. Most of them are pretty self-explanatory. We can actually share information with people that are not using the platform. We can actually upload, download, delete information. We can create, we'll get to transmittals and reviews here in a second, but you can actually create that, or basically a review of a package of information, or create a transmittal directly from your folders as well. So as I mentioned, so here you'll see we actually have reviews and transmittals. So below this files tab are some of our tools. So I can either create these more formal job tasks in those tabs, or through that ellipse as I just showed you within the files. More importantly, though, we get a list of all of the reviews or transmittals that may have been generated throughout the project lifecycle. So if I click on one of these tabs here, you'll see now this demo project is in its infancy, so there isn't a lot built up just yet. We're working on building this up, but you should still see how we can start to track all of this information generated in the document management portal by seeing these tools, and we can have all the access to all of this information in one spot. I know when I was working in architecture firms 12, 13 years ago now at this point, I forget, I'm probably dating myself, but in any event, we had Excel files for submittals and for reviews and RFIs and so on and so forth. All of that information, being able to track all the information, it can be housed directly in this in one of these two platforms for us. You can also see we have a reports tab. This allows us to generate reports based off of all the information that has been created. So for example, we could generate a report of all the transmittals that have been created in a project. Let's say a project manager needed to review that information. We could come down here, click on reports, and I think I have an issues report. We'll talk about issues here in a minute, but basically I can create a report of pretty much anything that's housed in BIM 360, because again, we're talking about that data that is that's in the unified platform. I don't know how long it's going to take me to stop fumbling between BIM 360 and unified platform, so my apologies. But you can, once again, I'm illustrating the kind of the confusion that everybody has had here for the last month or so. But essentially what I can do is I can generate reports based off of the information that has been either uploaded or created in this platform, and use those reports to send off to other team members, or just for general internal reviews, so on and so forth. So now if I go back to that files tab here, let me show you how you can view our files, manage those files, and even mark up those files all in the browser here. So if I expand a couple of these folders here, so I just know that my Revit model is housed. Let me expand this guy a little bit. So if I expand a couple of these folders, this is what our Revit model looks like here as we've uploaded to the cloud, and I can discuss if we have time later how we actually upload the Revit model to the cloud, for example. But just for the sake of this discussion, this is what the architectural Revit model that I pushed up into the cloud looks like. So I typically use Revit as that's where most conversations go. Obviously, you're the Seattle, Revit user group, so of course I want to talk about Revit with you. That's what I, typically when I do trainings, 90% of the trainings that I do are all in Revit, so that's what I'm most comfortable with as well. You can use other drawing files like AutoCAD or Civil 3D, InfraWorks, so on. The unified platform is still getting there as far as all the file formats that it supports. BIM 360 certainly supports all those file types. I think they're still working on getting some of the other file types that we may be working in Autodesk available in the unified platform. But Revit itself certainly is the first one that they made sure works correctly like it did with BIM 360. So what you can see before I click into the model itself, that I have access to version control, where I can bring up a flyout by clicking on this here. I bring out a flyout that shows me, when changes were made, when a model was published to the cloud. So I can see, today I published a new version of this model. You can see what time, and you can see all the other, all the other versions based on when somebody had pushed the changes to the cloud itself through what's called publishing, essentially. So you can see here I can actually copy or download my source file. I can actually make current. I hesitate to mention this too often, because what this does, this is like if I made version 7 current, it would effectively kill version 8 through 10. So it's a very powerful tool that you want to be careful with using. But it's still there. If we need to roll back a model a couple weeks for whatever reason, and we're okay with the lost work, you can make a model, you can roll it back and make that current. We can actually compare versions down here. We can view 2 separate. If I click on this, I can actually select 2 separate models. I won't do this right now, but you can compare them, and they'll be kind of color-coded, highlighted, and you can see basically the changes, what's been deleted, what's changed, and what's stayed the same through some color coding. Now, if I click on the model itself, it takes me to the viewer that some of you may be familiar with, if you've ever used any of the Autodesk 3D viewers online in the past. So here's my Revit model that has basically been published to the cloud. You can see down here that I have some navigation tools that are down here. I can, a lot of the navigation tools you might be familiar with. I even have section tools. I have a kind of a simple measurement tool as well. But you can start to see how I can take some of my information from Revit and be able to view it, either like we're doing right now in a webinar setting. For example, we're all working remotely, or even, I like to say that, or I like to talk about, think of a project manager who's not actually working in Revit. They don't have Revit installed. They're not doing production work, but they have access to the unified platform. What they can do, and they need access to being able to review the models, review the sheets, so on and so forth, mark them up, as I'll show you here in a minute. So what this does is this gives them access in a browser to markup tools, to generate issues, as we'll see, to kind of create all those types of things that we normally would, physical sets of drawings with red lines. They'll probably never go away, but this is a step in the right direction to trying to get a lot of that information up into the cloud. But more importantly, I always get calls about how does somebody access a Revit model when they don't have Revit installed, they don't know how to use Revit. This is a prime example of what the unified platform can do for those types of individuals. So I can also access my sheets as well, assuming that, depending on what I have selected in Revit to actually push to the cloud. So you can see here, let me just click on one of my sheets, for example. So I can look at the 3D model or the views themselves, or I can actually look at the sheets that are part of the Revit project as well. So you can see here, I still have my different navigation tools over here, but now over here, I actually have my markup and issue tools. Now I'm not going to go through all of this, but just know that I can basically create like a cloud here, for example, and you'll see here that I can publish this. So I can either keep it as a private markup for myself on any of the drawings or 3D views and the like, or I can actually publish it, and that means that it's visible to my entire project team. So if I'm in here and I'm going to basically redline a set in the cloud, I can use this and publish all of my red lines once I become comfortable with this process, and then those red lines will be visible let me just publish that, will be visible in the model itself. The next thing that I want to talk about, kind of the next step above marking up in the cloud and sending that information to your team and the like, is what's called creating issues. So we actually have here over here, if I click on this tool, I can create an issue. So you see here this little flyout. I have a list of, I can basically designate the issue in any kind of term, it kind of qualified by different categories. Let me just say general. I'm going to pin this here, and you'll see a new flyout will come up where I can give it a name, I can assign it to a specific person, I can give it a specific due date, so on and so forth. I can generate a ton of information. I can add references, so I can add photos, other files. I can generate issues, and as soon as I assign somebody and close this dialog, it generates an email and it's sent to the people on my team who get that issue. More importantly, I have a tab over here called Issues, where you can see here all the issues that have been generated in this project from any module that we may be looking at here today are all listed here. So you can track all of these issues that have been generated throughout the entire project. So whoever you assign it to will get an email. They can address it in Revit, make those changes, push it back up to the cloud, and they can come into the unified platform and they can change whether this is open, pending, in review, or closed. So again, you can see how a lot of the tasks that we have to keep track on different Excel sheets, and they're all over the place, information is all over the place, how can all be housed kind of all in one location for us. So let me go to the Design Collaboration tab here. Now, this is part of the BIM Collaborate Pro product that I mentioned. Close this and open this. So here you can see is that same timeline tool that I just showed you in BIM 360 about 5-10 minutes ago. As I mentioned, this is the product that lets us collaborate on a Revit model together. It supports multiple users work sharing on a model at the same time and syncing those changes to the model in the cloud. It's also the product that allows us to manage shared models between other teams, disciplines, trades, and or consultants. That's part of what you see here. So we have multiple teams here. Probably should have closed my email. Sorry about that. And again, like I said, so here you can see the timeline of when these different teams that we have here. Again, there's not a lot of information here. We're still populating, so it kind of creates this demo project. But basically, you can see you can essentially see when other teams have published their models and shared them with the rest of the team. So we can review these quote unquote packages as they're called. And if the changes are useful to us, we can then what's called consume the package, which will essentially move the model into a shared folder that we can then link into our own Revit models and use use in conjunction with the Revit model that we're working in. We can also review project status. So this is kind of similar to what we saw with the version control on within the docs portal. Shows us the dates of the latest publish, as well as who performed the last publish and where the models are located in docs. We have a couple other tools here, but in the interest of time, I won't review everything. Like I said, however, we'll be showing you meetings over here when we get to build here in a few minutes. And then, so let's move on to model coordination. So maybe if it wants to load. So model coordination is the same as BIM 360 Coordinate. This is part of both BIM Collaborate and BIM Collaborate Pro, those products on the unified platform that we're looking at here. So it allows us to take the models that have been saved in the cloud and combine them in a single view to run clash detection in the cloud. So basically what I can do is I can select two models to run clash detection. So let me just pick my my structural coordination model and my architectural coordination model, and I hit view. Hopefully this will generate pretty quickly for us. What this will allow us to, once it loads, we'll be able to click on the clashes icon that I'll show you and start to review all of the clashes between these two models. There we go. So it didn't take too long to load. This is a somewhat large model, so that's good to see that it's not taking too long. So what we can do, like I said, we can drill down and filter through some of these clashes. So here you can see the two models that we're looking at. What I can do is click on this icon over here, and it'll take me into something. If you've ever used Navisworks, this is going to look a little bit familiar to you. So it basically takes us into this color-coded view where now what I can do is that you can see here I have a full list. I have 3,309 clashes. Part of that is due to the fact that I think the way this model is constructed, you can see here like the architectural model and the structural model both have like a roof slab. I assume the floor slabs are also built in. So what we can actually do is, let's say one of these, I'll click on this, and what it'll do, it'll actually zoom me into the clash that it's picking. This was kind of a rough one to see a little bit here. You can see how they're highlighted. There we go. That's a little bit better. So it'll kind of give you this color coding where one item is highlighted in red and the other is highlighted in green, and everything else kind of fades off into a halftone in the background. So I can actually view these all of these clashes in the model. What I can do, as I mentioned, so let's say this is actually the roof slab. So the architectural model has a roof slab and the structural model has a roof slab. What I can do is I can actually say this is not an issue. So anytime we publish these models back up to the cloud and run clash detection, comparing these two models, that clash won't come up any longer, because we basically told it, okay, we know that there's two instances of this particular element from both models, but we're not worried about that as a clash, essentially. The other thing that I want to show you is we can actually create an issue from here as well. So if I say click create issue, and let's say this is a clash that I want somebody to address, I click at this, I create my pin, and what it'll do is eventually here, as you see, it's creating an issue. It'll come up with the same dialog window that we saw previously, where I can basically give it a name, assign it to somebody specifically, give it a due date. They'll get that email and it will be populated. So here you can see this is the same flyout that we saw before. So give it a name, assign it to somebody specifically here, give it a due date or a start date, and I can edit the description, add photos, add references, so I can basically attach other files, RFIs. There's a lot of information that we can tie to this. And then again, if I click out of this clash space, if I go back to my docs portal here very quickly, you can see here, if I click into issues, there have been a couple issues that have been created in the clash detection. So you can see here, if I expand it, so a couple of these, so coordination, here's a clash, an issue that was created in coordination. So we've basically seen, here's a couple of them, so here's another coordination. So those are issues that were created in the clash detection space. So you can see how, again, like I said, all of the issues, no matter where they're created in the entire project, will be visible all in one space, both in docs and, as we'll see here in a minute, through the build, the build module as well. And if we wanted, we could actually run a report of all the clashes between the two models, or the two models that we just looked at, or we could even run a clash of all the models if we wanted to. If we had someone on the team who needed to review the documents showing the breadth of clashes we might need to be exploring, we can run those types of reports. So again, the reporting is basically something that takes that data that's all housed in BIM in a unified platform and generates reports directly from there. Okay, so see if I can wrap this up here in about 5 to 10 minutes. So on to build. This is the last product that I want to review. So far, most of what we've talked about are likely tasks that we're tackling in the office. Some of them may be tackled in the field as well, but I think primarily we can lump most of them in with office work. The tools in build, while they can and certainly should be used in the office setting as well, are geared more toward using in the field through the PlanGrid app. So now with the unified platform, the app that you can use, that you can download and view all of this same information in the field on, say, a mobile device, probably more so a tablet than a phone. I think it'd be a little difficult on an iPhone, for example, or an Android or something like that. Like if you had an iPad or some other type of tablet, it's a little easier to see this information. I actually have an iPad that I play around with. But just know that by installing the app on a mobile device, you'll be able to access everything that we've reviewed thus far, and everything that we're about to talk about here with build. It will look very similar to what we're seeing in a browser. It's formatted a little bit differently, but just know, ultimately the idea is that all of the information that you have access to, say, for example, in the office on a browser, as we are right now, you would have access to that information in the field through the PlanGrid app. So with the time that we have left, I wanted to highlight some of the tools available that can be used both in the field and in the office for that full collaborative effort that I've been talking about here today. So here you can see that we have access to the same Files tab in Docs, giving us pretty easy access if we need to toggle back over to the files. We also have Sheets here, which if there's anyone who has used PlanGrid, like as I've mentioned, Sheets are an integral part of what makes PlanGrid so useful. Sheets can be generated from the files that we have in Docs. So if I go to my Sheets file, what I've done here is from in my Files tab, I actually took a PDF set and basically turned it into the Sheets that we see here. Sheets are a tool that are one of the main components of the PlanGrid tool that was integrated into this unified platform. As I was trying to say, the major benefit of turning your documents into Sheets for use in the field is that the sheet numbers will automatically be detected as you add revisions and bulletins those types of things, and keep everything in a proper order. Slip sheeting is always kind of can be an interesting process for project organization. So by using the sheets and having that information automatically update for you, you will know that those people in a team have access to the most recent drawing files through the app on the site. You can also create, if I go into one of these sheets, for example, you can also create markups, issues, generate transmittals. So you can see here, as soon as I come into the sheet, it looks very similar to what we saw in the 3D viewer with the PDF sheets that came with the Revit model itself. Here we have our markup tools. I can create issues as well. So somebody in the field can actually click on one of their sheets and they can generate an issue directly from the sheets in the field, and that'll be housed back in my issues tab, which again is also available here in the build product, where I can see all of those issues that have been created throughout the entirety of the project. As you can see, we have a number of additional tabs and tools at our disposal in Build. Obviously we don't have a whole lot of time, so we can't cover everything here, but I do at least want to highlight a couple of them. Forms that we have here allow us to create various forms or documents and checklists that can be used in the field for, say, job site reports, safety checklists, etc. For example, you can see that I have a couple templates here loaded in for site safety reports. I can create or load a template from Word or Excel into Build, say in the office. Then when someone opens the checklist or a field report up in the PlanGrid app in the field, they can fill it out, save it, and then there's a record saved in Build. So you can see a couple people who have taken some of these templates that we have, generated a field report, and now it's saved here. So I have a record, I have my templates here, and I have a record of all of my field reports or safety checklists, whatever the case may be, logged here in under the Forms tab. And I actually have filtering tools, so I can filter between something that's a checklist versus a field report, and so on and so forth. The next day, if they need it, they can open up that same template, fill it out, save it, and then generate another report in the sequence, and then all of it can then be tracked here in this tab. As you can, like I said, you can see we have a couple generated here, but not a lot. The Photos tab allows us to take pictures on site through that PlanGrid app, and then save it into our gallery that we have here. One of the really nice things about this is if we click on Map here, you can actually see that it will geolocate where all of the pictures were taken from. I think this is certainly useful, in keeping the project photos organized. I know I've taken photos during construction, plenty of photos on construction during, during construction progress, gone back to the office, and then I couldn't make heads or tails what floor I was on sometimes, exactly where the photo was taken from. Basically, when I'm looking at studs and wiring, half the pictures may look the same. So this is really useful, in that we can start to zoom in here and see exactly where in the project these photos may have been taken from. We have RFIs and submittals. They're exactly what they sound like. So we can generate both of these very important documents directly from either in the browser, in the office, as we've talked about, or even in the field through the app. So we can attach any documentation that's housed in docs that we might need. We can assign them the proper parties for review, for notes, for approvals. You can actually set up approval process where it's like 1-step, 2-step, 3-step, up to like 7-step approvals, I believe it is. And then you can track the progress of each one of those and know that we aren't missing any information that could be housed on somebody else's computer or in a manila folder on someone's desk, wherever really. This, again, being able to create these, these workflows, these tasks that we use all the time for construction administration or construction management, really useful to have. As far as meetings go, it allows us to generate meeting agendas, and we can add invitees to the meetings. We can even attach issues or photos or documents directly from docs so that someone reviewing the meeting can follow along and have everything at their fingertips. And then after the meeting is over, we can actually turn the agenda into meeting minutes and distribute them on a set schedule. And even more useful, we can use there's a create follow-up tool to start generating the meeting agenda for the next meeting. Basically, it uses any items that are still open as the starting point, and then we can add additional items as we go along. Okay, so I know we're close to the time, so I'm going to stop there and see what questions we may have. Pop back into
Hey, Nick.
slide. There we go. Okay. So I'm gonna hand it off to Annalise and see what questions we may have for the last few minutes.
That was quite a rapid spin. So thank you very much.
It's a lot of information.
I understand. I actually just wanted to start and ask you, because just several of them, and for the essence of time, I'll find out from David if we can do another additional 5 minutes or so. But Jason just wanted to find out, just to get a premise of it, is there a way to transfer BIM 360 project data to the old the United Platform side? Let's just get it out of the way.
Yeah, so unfortunately right now there are no migration tools. Autodesk has told us that they're coming. I take that with a grain of salt. I don't know when that is happening, but they're working on developing that to move projects over from BIM 360 to Unified Platform. Basically, the way it works right now, the migration tools would be downloading the information from BIM 360 to, say, the server or your desktop, and then pushing it back up into the Unified Platform. So what we're suggesting right now is anybody that's working in BIM 360, keep your projects there, any existing projects there, and then because you can view both projects from both platforms in the Unified Platform, start any new projects in the Unified Platform. That way you're not taking a day or two to move all that information around at the moment. Hopefully it comes soon, but they aren't telling us when that might be provided.
I see. And then also just it was a piggyback question to this, because could you clarify, because they can't renew their current BIM 360 subscription if they're adding into it. Can you just talk about that transition too? They have to use the new Unified Platform.
So the way it's working, and Autodesk unfortunately hasn't made it terribly clear to all of our clients, but basically the way it works is BIM 360 design is automatically being turned into BIM Collaborate Pro. So it gives you access to the Unified Platform. So you have access to both, think of it as having access to both BIM 360 design and BIM 360 coordinate on the Unified Platform. You don't have to use the Unified Platform, but you have access to it now. But more importantly, at least in terms of that question, you still have access to your BIM 360 platform through it being changed from BIM 360 Design to BIM Collaborate Pro. I hope that answers the question.
It does, and I guess I was just also going to say that if you don't know how this would affect you, then contact us, Nick, myself, or Jim. Send us an email at info@microsolresources.com, and we can find out how this would affect you, what product you have, what the options are, and we can discuss that. Because right now it seems to be we have a lot of changes. Not only are you trying to figure out what the different products can do, there's also changes on what the new platform does, and also some Autodesk policies.
Right.
So
we've been aware of what's coming down the pike for a couple months now. I've only had access for about a month to the Unified Platform. So I've been digging in and trying to figure some of this stuff out, because we weren't quite sure either until we got access to it. So it's that's not an uncommon question that we've been getting recently.
Understand. And I think what we're also planning on doing is doing a deeper dive into these products in the next few weeks. So stay tuned. Nick's going to do a deeper dive on how this would affect and what else is new. And again, if you need to go and review this presentation or do a specific product.
Yeah, we're going to try and break it up into at least two, one focusing on design, one focusing on construction. So I know I crammed a lot into this one 45-minute session that I had here. It's a lot of information to take in, but we're going to try and do a little bit deeper dive by breaking it up into two segments here, like I said, over the next few weeks.
Yeah. Hey, thanks a lot, Nick. Yes, a lot of information. And Annalise, I was going to suggest, just in the interest of time, to give everybody their afternoon back, I was going to suggest that what we do is we compile the questions that have come in through the chat and maybe post those with their responses onto the Meetup event page down under the comments. We can just going to do a cut and paste on that, and everybody can see it, because I know that I have a handful of questions that I'd love to get to, but in the interest of time, I think that those better if we kind of write them down, and maybe that can lead to more conversation online, or maybe, like you said, more of a deeper dive. But yeah, I wanted to give Microsoft Resources again a really big shout out. And thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being part of the SeaRUG family.